Welcome back to Carneades.org. Today we have a special treat for you. We have a short excerpt from a conversation I had earlier this week with the Reductio Adventures in Ideas podcast. It was focused a little bit on our new book, but it ranged widely from conversations around Ubuntu philosophy, but also virtue ethics and consequentialism in public decision making. This is just a short excerpt. Check out the full podcast and the full conversation on Reductio, link in the description. I hope you enjoy.
Yeah, we did an episode on Ubuntu ethics, and so that might be a good tie-in there.
Oh yeah, no, we have one of the videos in that series is on Ubuntu, and it's fascinating, and I think can help you look at problems in different ways than people might otherwise do. So,
right, yeah, I teach a paper when I teach environmental ethics on Ubuntu ethics and GMOs in Africa, and it's a pretty cool paper.
Oh, that's fascinating.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that makes sense. Good. Yeah, it's like we have this thing that we're actually trying to track, like preference, preference points,
Yeah.
and then we've been using money as a sort of stand-in for preference points or something, and it's not working primarily because of wealth inequality.
Exactly, 100%. It doesn't fit. The thing that we're actually measuring and the thing that we are trying to measure are getting split up because of large wealth inequality and the ability of the wealthy to skew the market and want to pay more and appear to value something more, even when maybe they're not getting that much real value from it. Exactly.
Right. Yeah. It's an interesting, like, you almost have to think of it as, in certain cases, like the government is allowing certain things to happen, even though they're risky to human lives.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like almost like a killing versus letting die type of distinction, where it's like, it feels important to say that, like, the government not shutting down the economy isn't risking people's lives so much as like not intervening in a risky system or something like that. Yeah, so I don't know, maybe that doesn't actually make that big of a difference in the real world, but it feels like there's some kind of distinction there feels kind of important.
It is an interesting question whether that it has impact with governments. A lot of the philosophical literature has an importance placed on the killing versus letting die. And I do think most of this conversation around public policy is in the letting die space. It's not in the actively killing. These aren't governments that are advocating going out and specifically murdering people or finding individuals. This isn't killing for hire. And I think one of the frustrations economists get with philosophers is that some philosophers that critique cost-benefit analysis go down that route, and economists say that's not even what we're talking about. We're not really talking about a government going and murdering people for hire. We're talking about a government choosing to reduce the risk of someone dying, which feels a lot more like all of the conversations are in the letting die space. I mean, even with Apocalyptic Caucus, that's a government choosing to let people, it's letting a lot of people die, but it's choosing to let people die by not doing anything or not intervening.
That's always kind of the problem with virtue approaches to these problems, which I would count myself like among the virtue people when it comes to these kinds of issues. But one problem with them, with us, I should say, is that it's difficult to create a system where you truly can trust in the virtue of other people. And that, like, we know that we're not put together very well in terms of our cognitive systems, and we're prone to all these biases and things that can be really problematic. And I think virtue theorists tend to be very optimistic about the possibility of overcoming those by being aware of them and things like that. But you still, like, always lurking in the background is this thought that you're inviting the possibility of racist decision making into, or sexist decision making or whatever, ableist decision making, and you're inviting that possibility in, even if you're trying to select and train virtuous decision makers. You're still going to invite this possibility without some kind of procedure for people to follow.
And I do think there's certainly a balance to it, right? I think that using a procedure to provide data and information, but not necessarily having that procedure be the end all be all, having that procedure be the way that we get the information so that people are making decisions not in a vacuum of information. Because I know there's a number of studies that look at the people are most likely to express those biases when they don't have any other information about someone or about a situation. The more information you provide them with, the more they're able to exercise those virtues and make a decision based on real information and a reasoned argument, as opposed to when people are in a vacuum, your brain just starts filling it with the unconscious biases that you may have. And so pairing, I think you do need good and virtuous decision makers to make these things effective, but that they're best paired with a transparent and data-driven system that can provide them with enough information that they can make those decisions based on facts and not based on biases, even if they don't want to.
Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed. If you want to listen to the whole conversation, check out the full interview at the Reductio Adventures and Ideas podcast. And of course, check out the book Are All Lives Equal at a link in the description. Watch this video and more here at Carneades.org, and stay skeptical, everybody.